Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, we're live. Good morning, everybody. They awarded the Stanley Cup last night, so I just want to congratulate any Vegas fans out there, and my condolences to any Florida fans out there, and to all the other teams that didn't win the Cup or didn't make the playoffs this year, like my team, the Flyers. So it's always next year, I guess. Only one team can win. So good morning to our participating communities in White Sand First Nation, Araland First Nation, and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. Welcome everyone, and thank you for registering and participating today in the Internet Society's online training initiative. My name is Bruce Visitor, and I'm the project manager for the project, and I'm a member of Whitefish River First Nation, and I'll be your host moderator for today's training session. So before we get started, I would like to recognize and thank any chief and council members, community champions, and community members that are on the call. The pilot project would not have been possible without the commitment from the participating communities and the hard work of the community champions. Thank you, and miigwech. Today, we'll be learning about fiber and wireless networks. The first two presenters will provide some theory on fiber and wireless networks. Then each of the participating communities will deliver a presentation on their communities and their current IT projects. The last two presenters will provide examples of successful fiber and wireless deployments at the community level. We will have a 10-minute break after the community presentation, so it's pretty jam-packed for the next 3 hours. Before we get into the presentations, a few housekeeping items. So if you're not talking, I would just ask if you set your microphones to mute. I see that the majority of you do have them muted, but there's a few that don't. So if you could just mute your microphones, please. This will limit the background noise when the presenters are speaking. You can also turn your camera on or off. So I see that some of you have them on, some of you have them off, which is great. In terms of questions during the presentations, we do ask that if you do have questions, if you can just use the icon, the hand icon below in your screen, just raise it, and then I will try to cut the presenter off and get you to ask the question. Other option is just to post your question in the chat, either to me or to everybody. I'll pick it out, and then we can ask the question when appropriate. We'll also have Q&A sessions. If anybody has any questions after each presentation, we can by all means have those, but we do have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation as well, at the end of the training session as well. So I believe that's it in terms of the housekeeping. So the other thing is the agenda is posted in the chat to your right. There's no times, but basically everything is in order. Today's session will also be recorded. So if anybody wants a copy of the recording, just let us know, post the message in the chat. On that note, I'd like to introduce Dr. Hossein Badran. Dr. Badran is the Senior Director of Internet Growth and Trust for the Internet Society and is also serving as the project lead for this project. Dr. Badran will now provide you with an overview of the pilot project.
Thank you so much, Bruce. It's a great honor to be here with you, with the leadership and community members. Like to recognize band council members who are present and the community members who have really made the time and commitment to participate in this training. Let me share my slides. 1 second. Yes, this is the Community Broadband Networks for Rural and Remote Indigenous Communities project. It's a partnership between the Internet Society and the National Research Council of Canada. And the project objectives is to really help bridge the digital divide by providing education and training to band councils and Indigenous members and members of Indigenous communities, with the objective to develop community networks as hopefully a short-term objective, as we will see also from the members, the community presenters who will be speaking today. This is indeed the case. For deployment of community networks for broadband internet access in these Indigenous communities in Ontario, and also we had participation from communities in Northwest Territories. The project started in April 2023 and will extend for about 18 months until the end of August 2023. Yes, started 2022 and will end in 2023. It encompasses 4 phases: building an advisory committee from Indigenous community experts, as well as experts in internet technology from academia, particularly, and from civil society, that have guided the process of community selection and training development and delivery. Level 1 training, which took place in November 2022 and also in January of this year, and the communities here have really participated quite intensely, and thank you so much for the commitment. And now we are in the level 2 training which is a more in-depth training of fiber networks and wireless network deployment, as well as also listening to communities' plans and for the deployment in their respective areas. One of the key deliverables for this partnership with the NRC is also a case study that will document the ambition and of particular community, and the community of Newash has been selected for this for the case study development, and really thank them, thank Mike and the Band Council leadership for their commitment and agreement to participate in this very important effort. We are now at level 2 training, where 3 communities who are present here today have been identified to have shown the interest really to learn more about technologies and business models to deploy, and the experiences in other Indigenous communities to deploy community networks. And the champions who are present here will really appreciate their help and their support and their leadership in their respective communities. Now we are delivering this training, as Bruce has mentioned, building wireless networks, building fiber networks, and tomorrow we'll have the hands-on cripping exercise as the final delivery of the training. The case study, which is now started to develop, has the objective is to capture the story of community, its development, and also ambition to deploy a broadband network in their respective in their community, and what are the steps that are being taken for this deployment take place, and what will be the expected benefits from this from such an undertaking. And we see this as a very strong statement of interest and commitment that will really can reflect in other deployments across Canada, that Internet Society and the NRC and others can use to publicize and advocate for the community ambition and to replicate this model in other communities. And we have communication consultant Jennifer, who is present to capture really this story today and in the coming period, to capture it in a case study as well as a video testimonial that will be also publicized. So without further ado, thank you so much. I would like just to mention that there's a survey for the course, a pre-course survey and a post-course survey to measure the benefit of this course offering. It was emailed to you by our communication consultant, Dr. Rob McMahon. So please make sure if you don't have access to the computer, that you can print it out and fill it out as part of the course evaluation exercise. Thank you so much. Back to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Dr. Badran, for providing the overview of the project. Very informative. I'd now like to introduce Samantha Belay. Samantha is a PhD candidate at the University of Alberta, and she's going to provide a brief overview of the learning objectives related to today's training session. Samantha?
Hi everyone, how's it? I hope everyone's doing well this morning. So for the learning objectives for today, we hope that by the end of level 2 training, you should be able to understand the differences between wireless and fiber community-based networks, feel confident in explaining the benefits, challenges, and risks of setting up a fiber or wireless network in your community, know the components, cost, and regulatory requirements of setting up and operating wireless and fiber community-based networks, feel confident in reaching out to consultants and First Nation experts working in this field, identify possible funders for community-based wireless and fiber networks, and identify the steps required in working with a consultant to plan a community-based wireless or fiber network. And finally, know where to find resources and supports for community-based networks in your own community. So I'm going just to post these learning objectives in the chat for your reference if you want to refer back to them. Thanks. Back to you.
Thanks, Samantha. I'm going to now introduce Rob McMahon. Rob is an associate professor at the University of Alberta and is managing the monitoring and evaluation aspects of this project. He'll provide an overview of the evaluation component discussed today, as well as introduce the pre-training survey that we'd like all participants to complete before we get started. Rob?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bruce. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, great. So nice to see you all this morning, and thanks for joining the training. So as Bruce mentioned, so I'm working with Samantha on an evaluation of the course. So what does that mean? That means that we really want to hear from you about your experience with the course. The course topics. We're trying to measure, what you know at present, and then what you come away with learning after the course. So what does that involve? That involves 2 sets of survey questions. So what we'll do is have you fill out a survey before we do any of the course material. Then you'll learn from folks during the courses themselves. And then following that, at the end of the day, we're going to do another course. So it's just trying to see your impressions of what you've learned today. I'm just going to let you know as well that the way that we're doing the course is, if you're online, we're going to post a link to the survey in the chat. And then if you're doing this course like in person, we'll email you or the community champion a PDF of the survey. They will print it out, and then we'll just get you to fill that out on pen and paper. What I'll say too is, I work at the University of Alberta, so I just want to make sure you're comfortable in doing the course. And I'll let you know that all of the questions, there's nothing that should be any risk to you or anything, but if you feel uncomfortable answering any of the questions, there's no obligation to do so. As well, we do ask for your first letter of your first name and then your last name. That's just so we can line up the questions before and after to measure your personal involvement. But any reports we made are totally anonymous, okay? So nobody's going to know, connect the answers to you or connect the data to you. And then the last thing I'll say is that the data itself is only seen by Samantha and I, and then we will use that. It goes directly to us, and then we will prepare a report for the team, and then also prepare some research materials. We're making sure that we're very careful about protecting your privacy and so on with the data. And the survey has undergone a review from our ethics board at the university, so they've checked that as well. So we have quite a strict ethics process to make sure that everybody has they're aware of what's happening with their data, and that they don't feel obligated to do anything that they don't want to do. But we do think that if you are willing to complete the survey, it would be really helpful in us, as Hussein said and Bruce said, sharing information about this course to continue this type of learning in the future, and then also to share our experience with other people through any research we might produce. So I'll just stop there, and I'll just ask if anybody has any questions or concerns about the survey itself. Okay, so if you do have any, when you're filling it out, feel free to put it in the chat, or unmute yourself or anything. And in the meantime, I'm just going to turn off my microphone, and I'm going to post the link in the chat for those participating online. And then could I please ask those participating in person to hand out the PDF that says, it's called the pre-course survey. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rob. So once the, as Rob mentioned, he's going to post the link in the chat. So those of you that have laptops or devices, you can just click on that link and go through the survey. So we're going to take 5 minutes to do that. For Jason and Mike, Rob has sent you hard copies of the survey, so you'll just have to print them out for some of your members that don't have a laptop with you there today and just provide them a copy. So we'll take 5 minutes to get that done right now. Hello, everyone. It's been about 5 minutes now, so most of you should be done the surveys. If not, just keep moving ahead. But we're going to get started on the presentations now. So we just want to try to get back on track here. So welcome back. I want to introduce our first presenter of the day, Mr. Mike Jolly. Mike is the Director of IT at Mo Quebec EU. We are happy to have Mike join us here today. Mike, can you provide some additional information on yourself and proceed with your presentation? And just let us know where you're broadcasting from today. Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Good morning. I'm Michael Jolly. I'm from Moose Factory, Ontario. I am a member of Mo Quebec EU. We're a collective of people that are not recognized as a band, I guess you want to say it like that. I have been here for the organization for 24 years. I started off actually even before that as a summer student. I worked for the cable company as a summer student. Mo Quebec EU has been a cable company since the late 80s. And then in 2000, they became an internet service provider by linking fiber between the two communities. I was a part of that project when we started that. It was a $1.2 million project, becoming an ISP, an internet service provider. And we've been moving along in technology. All my techs are local people. We're qualified and trained to do it. One of our mandate was to provide employment opportunities and to build capacity within our membership. Currently, I run also an IT company, so we've actually trained people how to do technology stuff. So we have clients to service that. If you have any questions during the presentation, please stop and ask. This is for your benefit. The fiber optic networking is so big that it's hard to condense all this down into a short presentation. So I am going to go over what I can to try and help stimulate some conversation with you guys. So, and saying that, I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully you guys can see, oh, there we go. You see my screen?
Yeah, you're good, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I am gonna, hopefully this will work. All right. Still see my screen? We're still good? Yeah,
All
thank
good,
you.
Mike. All good.
All right, so community-based fiber network. So like I said, we have been involved in technology for numerous years. We have been working on our fiber to the home project for Moosonee and Moose Factory. We are about to begin the actual construction of our project. We are currently spending $2.5 million. In the previous session, I'd shared the budget of what we were doing, just to give an idea. So if you guys still need a copy of that, please feel free. I'm sure my board won't mind me sharing that. So what makes fiber optic? There are different mediums, fiber optic, wireless. For me, fiber optic becomes more practical because we already have some of that in our network. So let me start this video, and I hope this video works. This is the first time I've actually embedded a video. So I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to play enough of it so that way you can actually go online. I got this out of YouTube, so let's start with this. And someone give me a thumbs up if it works.
You can see the video, but there's no sound if there's any sound.
Well, I figured that was going to happen. No sound, you said?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? The video is there in the link. So, like I said, I tried something a little different. I'm not sure how to actually incorporate it into the Zoom. So I am going to move forward on the next slide here.
You can leave it running. I think it's self-explanatory. I think we can benefit from what's being
Yeah. Great. All right. Let me just go back one here. So the reason why we looked at fiber optics is basically capacity. We're talking about how much information you can actually flow through it. So when you do, the way I can compare this is that you turn on the water tap a little bit, that's a little bit of information coming out from the internet. Turn it up a little more, you know, that's the comparison between wireless, copper, fiber. Fiber has unique properties that allow you to do more with it. So basically you can turn out the tap full blast and have as much data going back and forth. So your YouTubes, your Netflix, you know, fiber has also better benefits for it. You know, you can go further distance without less equipment. You'll hear terminologies like passive, so which means there's no power on your network, that you can go great distances. Some of the things you'll hear for when you're looking at your own design for your community, they'll talk about fiber to the home, which is, you know, putting fiber optic directly right to your home, or fiber to the premise. Those are the exact same things. Currently, right now in my network, we are currently running fiber to the node. So we go so far, and then from there we go on coax, which has its own challenges and problems. And then fiber to the curb, again, getting it into the subdivision, and then the last mile to your house is on a copper. So fiber to the home is I guess the ultimate in terms of connectivity, and has a lot of technical advantages. Again, I'm not going to really go over all of them because it's a lot to consider. Here is just a simple diagram, just so that way you have an idea. Your ISP, which is your internet service provider, which would be you at your central office, has a device that sends out the fiber optic light, and when you watch the video, it'll explain what that looks like. The optical line terminal goes out, and then one fiber goes, in my case, one fiber leaves my building, and that will be split to cover 16 homes. So you'll have, you know, 100 fibers going out, and all those fibers could potentially be split to cover another 16 homes, which means you'd be able to cover 1,600 people. Further down here, you'll see there's fiber to the curb, and then what I'm currently running is fiber to the node. So again, these are just terminologies just to give you an idea. And when we get into further the slides, we'll talk more about that. So let's ask some questions. You know, we need to ask some questions for your particular community. And one of the things that we need to know is, what type of infrastructure do you have? You know, do you have hydro poles that you can attach your fiber optic cables to? Or better yet, is the ground suitable for you to bury the fiber? There are advantages and disadvantages to both. You know, basically it comes down to your geographical location. In my case, where I am, all our infrastructure is all up on hydro poles, so it's an aerial network. The ground that we have has a very high water table, so it makes it challenging for us to actually bury fiber. The other thing too is that the roadways and easements are not standard in our community, so it's very difficult for us to actually plow fiber into the ground. So if you look at the lower left part there, you see this orange yellow tractor that's actually burying a fiber into the ground. It's more cost effective, less investment in terms of paying annual cost to hydro utilities, One of the benefits for some of the Indigenous communities is the fact that they don't have to pay that because they actually own the poles. So you may want to check with your administration to see if that is the case. We have wooden poles here, so that's why it makes it easier for us to deploy our fiber optic. The other question would be is, well, how does your community get internet right now? Is it coming in by satellite? Is there fiber optics bringing the connection to your community? Are you on a microwave link? Is it coming in by cellular? You know, who is your bandwidth internet provider? And that's what connects you to the outside world. Someone has to provide that connection. Is it Bell? Is it Rogers? There are local telecom people or organizations. There's even third-party providers that sell bandwidth. In my case, for our community, we purchased our bandwidth from KNET. KNET is an Indigenous organization that became a SmartNet community many years ago, and we've been a customer of theirs. We do have Bell in our area. However, over the years, for us, we found it more feasible and economical for us to be using an Indigenous organization. So that's the question. Next question you need to know is, well, how is that coming into your community? Who is providing that connection to you? Now we talk about your project. You know, how, you know, planning how your community, your project here. You know, your team, your local team that is sitting there around the table saying, well, how are we going to do this? Your consultant. So we have a consultant for our project that, you know, we're not all experts at what we do, and I'm actually a little busy on other projects. So we hired a consultant, but my consultant listens to me. I was very clear when I'm dealing with people that our network needs to be unique. Your engineering group, they're your group, you know, they have to listen to what you are trying to say to them, and they're trying to fit your needs into your project and how it will work. Your technical group, we are very unique for our organization. We actually have our own technical group, so it's all local people. We have, like I said, we have trained people, we have built capacity. So that's very important, so that way they understand. We have brought in we've brought in a construction trainer to teach my team how to do it, and teaching them. My philosophy with the individuals we bring in for outside training is that your knowledge needs to be transferred into my local people. I'm not paying you to stay around after, so I want my people to have the fundamental knowledge of it. They may not grasp it all, but that with my team, we're very fortunate enough that we were able to move forward with it. The biggest thing I've seen in other people's projects is the documentation. You're paying for all that information. You know, you need to be able to have all the documentation. People change over time. You know, your engineers may retire, your consultant may move on to do other things. So you need to have that documentation with you, because that becomes more important later, because when you start should you have problems or make some changes to your network, having those plans, that documentation in your hands is critical. It's also good for your team to understand, you know, and keep going over your network to understand it. Gathering information, you know, that's not, you guys are in the communities, you know, with the size of your community, how the community is laid out, you know, you see around whether there's poles or you have the chance to bury stuff, you know how many businesses and residential customers you potentially could have, the type of service that you want to provide, whether you're going to provide just internet, whether you're going to look at providing internet and phone, or internet and some form of entertainment services like TV. Those are some of the questions that you need to do. The benefits of fiber optic is that you're able to put multiple services on your network to do multiple things. The bandwidth capacity is there. Currently, right now, I only provide 2 services, and once my fiber optic is in, I will be looking at becoming a phone provider. The more services you can provide, the more revenues that you can have coming into your business. And then the last part is, again, the ownership structure. This slide I actually took from the first presentation that I made. So just reinforcing that information. The ownership structure was community owned, profit versus nonprofit. Both have benefits, and actually for our organization, for my cable company, I'm set up as a for-profit and a nonprofit. As an Indigenous organization, there's value in that. Again, those are the questions that you probably would need to talk with your internal business people. They would be able to help you on something like that. So here we go. Simple, very simple concept. You have your central office where your fiber transmitter, which is your OLT, sorry, transmitting your information out. The main part of the area where the multi-fiber cable and the optical splitter sits out in your network, and then it gets to the customer home. And I'm just using this as an example, whether it's a home, an apartment, or a business, you can actually have all of them sitting on that one fiber that's currently being split. So that is called a GPON design, a gigabit passive optical network. Gotta love telecom. Telecom is full of acronyms. You have to become an alphabet type of person to understand what, and you start throwing the terms around, fiber to the home, FTTH, GPON, we're talking gigabits and megabits and stuff like that. So these are the things that you will be, and again, like I said, if you have any questions, please interrupt. It's such a big thing trying to cram into a small session, and hopefully I'm be able to stimulate some of the questions for you. So in my network, my multi-fiber, so we will have fiber counts of 140 fibers going into a certain area, and those fibers will be split to service that geographical location. We have planned redundancies in it. We planned spare fibers just in case a fiber does go bad, or we end up where our technology changes and we need to put more fibers into a particular area. We've kind of tried to future-proof as best as we can to look at our overall network. I think we'll have about maybe 400 fiber counts leaving our building. It's really overkill for what we are doing. However, because we're constructing it now, we're planning for the future. Tibby, you have a question?
I do have a question. Just to back up just a little bit, you said if a fiber goes bad, what does that mean if a fiber goes bad?
Again, so when the manufacturer is giving you your product, in an ideal world, it'd be nice to say that everything works. It could be that everything is test based upon specs. So they shoot a light through it, and as long as the optical loss is within the margin, then that's good. Because now when I say a fiber goes bad, so my network is aerial, and some guy in a dump truck is driving by and has the bucket up and clips my line. Doesn't break all the fibers, but he may break it where one fiber will actually go dark. So things like that. A connector, a splice goes bad, and because you didn't leave enough slack or enough so you can keep redoing it, that fiber becomes useless in that area, because now the fiber is so short that you can't splice it and extend it. One of the things that you will know in your own project is that your team will be told that you need to ensure you have enough extra fiber length sitting in your splice enclosure, so that way when you're splicing, if you make a mistake, you can cut it off and still have lots of room. So those are standards that in your project, your consultant will say, or your engineering team will say, you know, we're having a fiber enclosure in this area. The fiber needs to be so long so that way no one is perfect. All the new test fiber splicing units are awesome because they take a lot of the work out of it. But there's still a chance where your technician is having a bad day and accidentally clips the fiber on the wrong end. So so that's what I mean when a fiber goes bad. My network has been running since 2000. And the main fiber that comes over to Moosonee and Moose Factory, which is 21 kilometers, we've never had a fiber go bad. You know, so industry does plan to, or when they sell you a product, you know, it's should work, but again, you got to plan for the worst case scenario. So currently, right now, I have 16 fibers coming to Moose Factory, and out of those 16, I'm only using 8. So I have spare fibers there just in case. Are we good, TV? Right on. Here's a map, just a rough map of what a fiber network could look like. Your engineer will actually look at your layout and do a design based upon the geographical space. So if you notice in the center, there's a nice green little triangle box. You know, that is where the central location is. And then they have fiber going all over the place. You'll have a main fiber that goes to one area and then splits to go to service all these homes in this particular area. My network is very easy because all the houses are all on the street roads. So we run a fiber to, you know, so long that covers 32 homes in that one area. And it keeps going down to the next 32 and then the next 32. So my network is a very small in terms of its footprint. But other communities, their network is far. So the benefits of fiber optic is the fact that you don't have to worry about having power or electronics out on your plant. Everything is passive, and that's why they call it passive optical network. In designing your own fiber to the home, and I'm just using GPON as one of the concepts. There's Active E, which is running a fiber directly to every house. It's a little more costly, but there's benefits and disadvantages. And that's one of the things that when you do your business plan, you will look at that. This slide actually shows, you know, the different big players, you know, whether it's Nokia, Motorola, Cisco, Huawei. There's other smaller ones too, or bigger ones, I guess, too, that aren't on this list. And, you know, currently not right now, we're using Calyx for our network. Some of the components, and somebody else will probably cover this more, you know, the optical cable, the splitters, the filters. We'll talk about wave division multiplexing, you know, EPON, GPON. Like I said, we talk about the different type of architects, and your consultant will actually say, well, because of your geographical location, this is what we think is the best thing for you. Your project. One of the things that I'm not happy with, oh, Bruce.
Hey, Mike, just want to remind you the time, got about 3 minutes, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
One of the things I don't like is paying. Unfortunately, nowadays with the way that the telecom network is that you have to pay. So you pay your upstream provider, and that's the person that's providing you bandwidth. You will have to have an agreement with your vendor. So I have an agreement with Calyx for the number of subs that I'm using on their product. There is an annual subscription fee for that. Agreement with hydro, if you're using hydro poles. Again, most Indigenous communities may not have to worry about that. Your content, where are you getting your content? And there are numerous providers out there to cover that. So I actually have 2 different providers for my network. I have KNet for my internet, and I have Shaw Broadcasting for my TV services. Your business plan. This is what your consultant will help you with it. Have a good mission statement for it. Biggest thing for us as Indigenous community is that we want to say that it's an Indigenous-led project and that we're building capacity, that we are providing economic stimulus for our community, but also providing employment opportunities. So your business plan, again, your consultant will help you with that along with your accountant. Coming to the end of my thing. So here are some of the, I've shared again from previous, is the funders that are available out there. You know, the Universal Broadband Fund, ICON had closed. In Ontario, there's also Northern Heritage, which NOHFC, Northern Ontario also has a Anishinaabe Development Fund. So there's money out there that you can tap into, and then also to ISOC may be able to help put you in the right area type stuff. Resources, First Mile, an Indigenous opportunity for people to connect with. ISOC has lots of information coming out of them. FOA, which is the Fiber Optic Association, is a free website. You can go there. They actually have training. My techs have taken a lot of that. Community network readiness assessment books. There's tons of resources out there, and if your consultant is good, they will be able to help connect to help you with that conversation. And come to the end of my presentation. Again, Michael Jolly. If you have any questions during or even after, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to have conversation and provide whatever information or connect you with the right person. And I see Tibby's got her hand up.
I was just clapping.
Oh, hey, there we go.
All right.
So that concludes my presentation. Like I said, it's a lot of information to go through, and hopefully we can have further conversations if you need to. I'm sure anyone on the team here is more than adequate to be able to provide any help. All right, Bruce.
Hey, Mike, thanks a lot. Great presentation. I think, the key for me there is we're not all experts in this area. This is a changing technology. So I think the key is working with somebody that you trust in terms of a consultant, and then just like any business, putting a good business plan together, right? Just like anything you do, having a good plan in place and working with people you trust and people that are experts if you do have the money to do that. So that's important. Thanks again, Mike. In terms of questions, for sure. Thanks, Tibby, for asking the question during raising your hand. That's great. That's what we want to see. Moving forward, anybody else can ask questions as well. We will have a Q&A at the end as well. And if time permits, we'll have questions at the end of each presentation. But we do have a tight timeline, so we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to deliver their presentations as well. So in saying that, thanks again, Mike. We are going to move on to the next presentation now. I'd like to introduce Mr. Tim Whiteduck. Tim is the IT Director at the First Nations Education Council. We're very pleased to have him with us here today. Tim, can you provide some additional background information on yourself and then proceed with your presentation? Thank you. Sorry, Tim, you're on mute.
I got to rewind what I said. Sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Whiteduck. I'm an Anishinaabe Algonquin member from Kitigan-Zibi, Quebec, which is an Algonquin First Nation just north of Ottawa, about 2 hours drive. I am working currently for the First Nations Education Council based in Huron, in the Huron community of Wendake, Quebec, which is based in Quebec City. We are a regional organization supporting technologies. I've been involved in technology since over 30 years, and I'm approaching retirement soon. I'm looking forward to it. So I have a small team here that offer technical support services to over 22 First Nation communities in the Quebec region. So I hope you, if you have any questions on the presentation, please don't hesitate to ask them. So I'll begin my presentation here. Everybody see my screen? Perfect. So the presentation today will cover wireless technology, basically the networking fundamentals behind wireless technology, and I'll do my best to provide some examples on how we're doing it in our work. doing a lot of connectivity work here in Quebec. Philip Lalancette was supposed to join me this morning, but he's off on a technical support call, so apologize for that. So who are the First Nations Education Council? Like I said, we're based in Quebec City, in the community of Huron community of Wendake. We are basically a regional organization supporting many First Nations and 22 member communities. And as you can see from the map there, we cover that area for our support of technical support. And in regards to technical support, we basically operate complex networks and applications while asserting self-determined development goals like ownership of fiber optic. So like Mr. Jolly previously presented, ownership of your infrastructure is so important. It's key. For us, it's been key. So keep that in mind. Don't hand it off to anybody. Do it yourself. It's worth it in the long run because you have control of it. That's the point, really important there. So in addition to that, we do participate on national organizations such as the First Mile. So we always try to bring the issues of connectivity to CRTCs, other agencies like that who make policy behind broadband connectivity. So that's really important as well, being involved in that. And of course, we tried to do our best to support the local technicians, local teachers by providing them the training that they need. So we do our best to cover as much as we can, but our priority in our department here is the connectivity piece. So what is wireless communications? Basically, wireless communications is the transmission of voice and data without cable or wires in place of a physical connection. Data travels through electromagnetic fields, broadcast from sending facilities to intermediate and end user devices. Basically, antennas are electrical devices that transform signals to radio signals in the form of EM, electronic magnetic waves, and vice versa. The electromagnetic waves propagates through space, hence both transmitter and receiver consists of an antenna. So basically, with any wireless communication, you have an antenna on both ends, simply put. Each new generation of wireless communication, especially for Wi-Fi networking, is based on the 802.11 standard or specification. This specification continues to evolve and get it more advanced, gets more sophisticated. So much so now, like we're landed at gigabyte speeds as opposed to megabyte speeds 10 years ago. So the evolution of this technology is really, really moving fast. And this is all tied into our mobile phones, GPS receivers, remote controls, and Wi-Fi, so on. So wireless communication is made possible through a portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that we call the RF spectrum or the radio frequency spectrum. So I think it's important to get into what is spectrum at this point. So I have a slide on that, but before I click continue, I have a YouTube video that I'm not going to show, but it's there for your reference on what it was wireless. Yes, Bruce.
Hey, Tim, are you able to go into the full screen presentation, full screen mode? Just it'll make the presentation a bit bigger.
Do you see it?
I can see it, yeah, but I'm just wondering if we can make it bigger.
Okay, I see what you mean. I'm gonna have to stop sharing and reshare my screen because I'm in the wrong mode.
Okay, yeah, just take a minute to do that. Be great.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Tim.
Okay.
There we go. Yes, much bigger, thanks.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't realize I have 3 screens here, so I kind of get lost. Okay, so at the bottom of that, what is wireless communication? Yeah, there's a video link there that explains over 5-10 minutes what that is, and it gets into a little bit more discussion, but it'll give you a good idea. So what is spectrum? It is a radio frequency that fuels all wireless communication. From your smartphone to your home Wi-Fi, all forms of modern communication work by sending radio signals over invisible airwaves called spectrum. Whether you recognize it or not, much of our daily lives revolve around the use of these signals that are imperceptible to the human eye. I forgot to change that word, but invisible. Or so, forgot that word, Bruce. So on the chart on the right, you see basically the scope of what the spectrum covers, from marine communications all the way to the right to satellite communications. And what I'll be speaking to a little bit more about this morning is the Wi-Fi, the wireless networking portion, which is only a small part of the spectrum. I should mention too that the cellular is also a small part of the spectrum as well, which is turned into a very, very valuable resource for the government of Canada. And we're hoping as First Nations to get control or access to that spectrum so that we could gain access and do our own cellular projects. So just a side point. So finally, there's some YouTube videos there that I would recommend that you follow. Basically, it'll explain what spectrum is. And there's 2 videos there that I've found that would be helpful for you to look at. So what are the 4 types of wireless connections? And this is where we get into internet wireless. So we have the personal area network, which they term the PAN, the local area network, which is the LAN, the wide area network, which is called the WAN, and the metropolitan area network, which is a MAN. The ones that concern small business is the local area LAN, and the home network is the PAN, of course. And the wide area network it could be applied to a community type of application of wireless, and I'll speak a bit about that later on. And where I got this diagram, again, there's another resource at the 40net website that could explain this in detail if you want more information on it. Here is just a breakdown on those four models of wireless. The wireless personal area network are short-range networks that connect devices within a relatively small area. So this is like a home network. While wireless local area network are wireless networks that use radio waves, not Bluetooth technology like WiPANs. So wireless networks are more stronger, need more signals. So Bluetooth doesn't cut it. Bluetooth is really really short distance type of wireless communication. There's also usually one cable that is the access point for internet access. So you need to plug in a physical cable to a wireless access point, which distributes the signal wireless to other clients. A wireless wide area network can be maintained over large areas, such as cities or countries, via multiple satellite systems. So this is the definition of it, but in a community context, you could use point-to-point wireless connections, omnidirectional antennas for connections. So there's different ways, but we call this kind of, it fits into that category, as well as microwave technology, which is a more high advanced performing wireless communication method, which could go for miles, hundreds of miles, etc. And of course, metropolitan area networks connect several different WLANs in a metropolitan area. It is possible, but for our application in First Nations or in our communities here, we haven't gone that far or that elaborate, significant in terms of deployment level. So what is a wireless network? A wireless network is a communication system that allows data to be transmitted between electronic devices without use of physical cables. It is also known as Wi-Fi, which is a commonly used wireless network standard. What are the main components of a network, wireless network? You got the access point, which is the antenna that distributes the signal. You got the router, which its function is to direct network traffic between different connected devices, whether wired or wireless. You got the network card, wireless network card in a computer or in the phone, or this is the antenna that we speak about. It's a hardware component installed in a device such as computer, mobile phone, enabling wireless connection to a network. And then finally, you have the antenna. The antenna picks up the transmission of the radio frequency signals needed for wireless communication. And I put basically 2 types there, directional and omnidirectional. So directional If ever you do a building to building connection, it's often referred to a bridge connection, bridge mode. So just some techno language that we use in that. Okay, some of the pros of wireless connectivity. Mobility, of course, mobility is huge. Users can connect to a wireless network from anywhere in the coverage area without being restricted by cables. As a standard here in the work that we do with First Nation public sectors is that every building gets a wireless network. It's so essential to the work that they do. So everyone needs it these days. So mobility is a really essential part to providing service to everyone. The ease of installation, installing a wireless network is generally simpler than installing a wired network because there's no need to run cables through walls and ceilings. So if it's the ease of installation is very practical when you need a short-term solution as well. We often use wireless technology to connect a building while we wait for fiber to come. So it's really, you could use it as a hybrid solution as well when you're doing your networking in a community. It's flexible. A wireless network allows great flexibility in terms of positioning and connected devices. It's easy to add, move, or remove devices without having to modify the physical infrastructure. Multiple connectivity. Cost savings. Just looking at some pricing before we started this morning, a basic Wi-Fi access point starts at 70 to, we buy Wi-Fi antennas here for schools, which is based on the capacity of the people joining the Wi-Fi. So you need to plan out and scope the amount of capacity in order to get the right Wi-Fi device. So we use the 40net technology for a school environment, which could accommodate thousands of connections into one unit, which has a backhaul transport of gigabyte. So Wi-Fi 6 is the standard now, which is, if you look at the chart here, the 802 specification starts at B, which is 15 years ago. Now we're at AX, which is gigabyte speed, which is Wi-Fi 6, which is 802.11ax. So Wi-Fi 6 is the way to go. Of course, you want to buy the latest and greatest, and these start between, well, around 70, but they go up in range depending on your need. And of course, microwave, which is the high-end, high-frequency, long-distance application of wireless. These could go on for miles, hundreds of miles, depending on what your needs are. But this really needs a really good study for the environment because it's all line of sight. And when you're going long distances like that, the line of sight is really important because you not only have the line of sight, you have the parabolic signal that's attached to it. So a study is really needed for that. The cons, it's limited in range. The range of wireless network is generally more limited than that of a wired network. Walls, physical obstacles, and distance can reduce the quality and stability of a wireless connection. If you compare it to a physical cable from a switch, the distance is 300 feet. With a wireless, you have walls and all that, right? So there's a factor for the signal strength in that environment. Interference. Wireless networks are subject to interference from other electronic devices, other wireless networks, or environmental interference sources such as microwaves. Security. Wireless transmission is more exposed to attacks by unauthorized users, so you must pay particular attention to securing your wireless systems. And there's a whole document or a whole area on that. And I believe if you click on this, you'll get more information on it if you'd like to. So this is a resource here for you as well to refer to later. Installation problems. You may experience interference in others if others in the same building also use wireless technology or where other sources of electromagnetic radio interference exist. This could lead to poor communication or in extreme cases, complete loss of wireless communication. So it's important to study what you want to do first to be sure you plan out your interference or any risks or challenges in that regard. Coverage. In some buildings, getting consistent coverage can be difficult, leading to black spots where the signal isn't available. So for example, in structures built using steel reinforcing materials, you may find it difficult to pick up a radio frequency used. So if I refer to that little table on the right, you see the level of interference caused by those elements, being lumber to concrete being the worst blocker for signal strength. Transmission speeds. Transmission can be slower and less efficient than wired networks. In larger wireless networks, the backbone network is usually wired or fiber rather than wireless. So all depending on your capacity, be sure that if you are planning a wireless network, that it meets the capacity of your needs. Just a quick page here on what are the disadvantages and advantages of, oh, sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
Hi, Tim, just want to let you know another few minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, this is what I just described here. Basically, just be careful of the interference in the concrete and the range. So do a proper analysis of your network deployment before before purchasing it. So you want to make sure you have the right technologies and the right plan to do that. This is a great resource if you exactly what I was going to finish on was the planning. Make sure that you address the coverage that you want, the capacity, the applications that you're going to use, the security. Make it simple, make it redundant as possible. Redundant meaning a back end or a backup for connectivity. A network integration, if it has to integrate into an existing network, who's going to manage it, how it's going to be managed, and a site survey, really important for a wireless solution. And here's some tips on if you encounter issues using wireless. There's some tips here on what you could do to improve that situation. I'm not going to go through this too much on detail, but here's some funding resources. And I just added the CIRA grant, the Canadian Internet Registry Authority, which offers grants in infrastructure and connectivity, which is also available to First Nations every year. The application period is closed, but they do open every year. Just to show you here, this is our model of, we do install fiber optics in all First Nations public sectors in Quebec. We also do wireless connectivity. So you could do hybrid approaches. You could run both. Just be sure that it integrates well with your network. The technology is compatible. And we use it in our model of deployment for connectivity. It's always fiber at the end. So wireless technology is a great temporary fix until we get fiber to that building, because fiber could take months depending on the study, right, and all that stuff. So so yeah, I put on the bottom there, wireless needs a line of sight. That's important. So there's two types of wireless connections, be it point to point or omni, and we've done both. But today we do the bridge mode, just to satisfy, to provide a connectivity to a building, a new building in the community until we get fiber. So I believe that's, here's another resource for you. If you need more information on governance, technology governance, there is a part in our education governance document on the website for you to refer to. And we have some good, how to say, standard recommendations on connectivity and technical services and training and all that. So feel free to go to our website. Here's our coordinates. And I believe that's it for the presentation, Bruce.
All right, thank you so much, Tim. I didn't see any hands raised during the presentation. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions. If you do, just quickly raise your hand. I do want to thank Tim for the presentation. Mike, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, one of our guests here in the chambers has a comment.
Okay.
So compatibility, is there something that you're going to present later on that we should watch out for in getting other networks involved with what the system we're going to have and what kind of how is that gonna work? Like, I think we need to be prepared to and watch out for that, especially when we're gonna be doing, this new.
Tim, did you want to respond to that or comment?
Sorry. I'm having problems with my microphone. Usually, if I speak to what we did here, we're using a 40net network, like a Cisco network. It does the same thing. We just made sure that the usually or normally the ubiquity or whatever technology that you choose is compatible. Just there's certain rules like networking rules that you need to respect and be sure that it's tied into well, because the security has to pass through it as well. So just make sure that you refer to the network documentation on both sides. And that's all I could recommend. So your network manager would have to do that task to make sure that both sides are compatible. They both meet the level of security in terms of protocol. So there's a certain checklist that they need to do. I could look at information on it, but there's a link in the presentation, Securing Your Wireless Network, where you'd probably find more information on.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Thanks for the question as well. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but by all means, if it didn't, you can always follow up with Tim or one of the other consultants or one of the other trainers to try to get a response you're looking for. It's way over my head. I'm an accountant, so I have nothing to offer. So thanks, Tim, and thanks again for the presentation. Thanks for the question. I don't see any other questions at this point. So very interesting, a lot to digest for sure. I think we're all here about wireless, but like myself, I have no clue in terms of how it works. So I just take it for granted that it is working and that I have my connection here today from my router that's sitting beside me. So thanks for providing a little background on that, Tim, in terms of how things work. We're going to move on to our next presenter at this point. I'd like to introduce Mike Earl. Mike is the Senior Administrative Officer at the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. Mike is going to provide us with an overview of the community and their IT infrastructure project. Mike, can you just go ahead and provide a little bit more background info on yourself and then proceed with your presentation? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Bruce and Hossein, for all your support as we've worked through this project. As Bruce mentioned, my name is Michael Earl. I'm the Senior Administrative Officer for the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation, located on the Saugeen Peninsula in Bruce County. And I put together a presentation here that'll start with some background on the community. For many of the participants that are here with me in the chambers or joining us that are members of the nation, this will likely cover information you're already very familiar with at the start, but then we'll get into the project that we're currently undertaking with some partners. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. Is that coming up clearly for everybody?
Hey, Mike, it's not on the full screen. It's just kind of half a screen.
All right. Bear with me one moment, please. I'm going to try the trick Tim used there. I'm not sure why it's not giving us the full screen here.
Okay, Mike, that's fine. You can just go with what you have and
All right. Let's see there.
there we go.
All right. I'm not sure we can see it here, but
Yeah,
Very
we can see it well over here.
okay, I'm just gonna have to look up at our big screen. So again, we are the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation, and this is going to be a presentation about our Fiber to the Home project. So there's a picture of Ontario, and if you can look just down here on the Saugeen, also known as the Bruce Peninsula, there's a little yellow star, and that is where we are located. So a bit of a background about the Chippewas of Nawash. Nalina, can I ask you to turn out the light there so that I can see it a bit better without the glare here? So before the arrival of Europeans, the Saugeen Ojibwe occupied and utilized the land base of about 2 million acres. The area included the point presently known as the town of Arthur and extending west to Lake Huron and north to Georgian Bay. In 1836, the Saugeen Ojibwe signed treaty number 45.5 and proceeded to surrender 1.5 million acres of the very richest land in Upper Canada. Settlers continued to move into this area, and in 1847, it was necessary for Queen Victoria to issue a royal declaration. The declaration confirmed the land of the Saugeen Ojibwe as being part of the Saugeen Peninsula, also known as the Bruce Peninsula, as roughly defined by a line between Southampton and Owen Sound, as well as any islands within 7 miles of the coast. 3 years following that royal declaration, in 1850, the Government of Canada passed a Special Act for the Protection of Indian Lands against squatters and loggers. This was called an Act for the Protection of the Indians in Upper Canada from the imposition and the property occupied or enjoyed by them from trespass and injury. The Saugeen Ojibwe conceded a little less than 500,000 acres of the Saugeen Peninsula under Treaty Number 72 in 1854. In exchange, the Saugeen Ojibwe were to receive proceeds from all land sold to be held in trust, as well as better protection of the remaining reserves from encroachment. This land base remaining consisted of Chiefs Point, the Saugeen Reserve located outside Owen Sound, Colpoys Bay Reserve located near Big Bay, and Cape Croker Indian Reserve number 27, the fishing islands in Lake Huron, and Cape Herd Islands, and 3 islands at the entrance of Colpoys Bay. The 10,000 acres of the Nawash Reserve on the west side of Owen Sound were surrendered in 1857, and the residents were supposed to move to Cape Croker, but many residents were reluctant. And in 1861, the Colpoys Bay Reserve of 6,000 acres was surrendered. And although few did move to Cape Croker, the majority moved to Christian Island and some to Southampton. Cape Croker has since changed its name to Neashiningming. Pardon my pronunciation. Again, this is a tricky one at the best of times, but so that took place formally on January 21st in 1992. And the new name means the point of land surrounded on 3 sides by water. And for those who are familiar with Cape Croker, it is a peninsula that extends out from the eastern coast of the Saugeen Peninsula and is surrounded on 3 sides by water. There are just under 300 households in the community and approximately 800 residents, with a total membership of about 2,700 individuals. The Neashiniming community is a semi-remote community based and located on the Saugeen Bruce Peninsula in southern Ontario, and it is located along the Niagara Escarpment with many rocky bluffs decorating its landscape. And this fact will present some of the rationale for why we've pursued the project we have. So within the current state of internet services in the community, they are provided by radio-based microwave relay largely, though there are some satellite solutions available, though they are not widely adopted in the community. GBTEL's radio-based service, and GBTEL is a local ISP provider, is the most commonly used service in the community, and this includes all of the Chippewas of Nawash programs. The radio-based internet service levels are slow and limited, and limit residents' opportunities in education, employment, medical care, and entertainment, to just name a few areas. The radio-based service, as was mentioned by our last presenter, does require a line of sight. And given the many escarpment bluffs and other topological features in the community, many residents and businesses are asked to install towers or masts in order to achieve this line of sight. Some residents have been requested to erect towers to their properties, even though that this may not guarantee a solution to their connectivity issues. And so for many, it is a barrier because this would be at their own costs. And again, there is no commitment on the service provider side that it will actually meet their service levels. Within the community right now, the fastest services available are 25 megabits per second download and 5 megabits per second upload, though the most common plans are 10 megabytes download, 3 megabyte upload, and 5 megabyte download and 1 megabyte upload. And as I did previously mention, there are some satellite options, though speed, availability, and affordability are limiting factors. As an example, the Starlink internet offered by Elon Musk has a wait list of over a year at this point in time, and they have not made a full level of service commitment to our area. A little bit of background here on GBTEL, the group we're currently undertaking a partnership in a project with that I'll get into in a few moments. GBTEL is a local internet service provider established in 2005 in the town of Allenford, located in Bruce County. That's about a 40-minute drive from where we're located. GBTEL has built and operates wireless and fiber optic networks in Gray and Bruce County. Currently, GBTEL is the ISP that, as mentioned, programs and services with the Chippewas of Nawash do use and is used by the majority of residents who have internet service at home. So our partnership with GBTEL revolved around a funding opportunity that was identified through SWIFT, which is the Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology Group. SWIFT is a regional broadband expansion project initiated by the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus and delivered in partnership with member municipalities and the Government of Ontario and Canada. It is committed to improving access to high-speed internet services across Southwestern Ontario, focused on enabling greater digital equality between rural and urban populations. SWIFT subsidizes the construction of open access high-speed networks to encourage service providers to expand broadband infrastructure into underserved rural areas. So the partnership between Nawash and GBTEL was prepared as a joint proposal to SWIFT with the goal of providing consistent, affordable, high-speed internet to all households in the community. This was a challenge because our current radio-based services were reliant on line-of-sight connections and were therefore not able to provide a consistent level of service to all of the residents and businesses within the community. And again, the level of service that was offered was sub-broadband internet speeds. So the solution that we proposed to SWIFT was to install a fiber to the home network throughout the community and upgraded technologies within our radio-based backhaul technology. Through this partnership, we expect new service levels to be available to all households in the community of 50 megabytes download and 10 megabytes upload. This is an interim project where we recognize that there are some areas for future growth. The investment in the fiber to the home infrastructure in the community is an investment in future cultural, economic, and educational growth. Service levels under the current project will be increased to 50 by 10 megabytes. However, fiber optic technology holds the potential for an exponential growth in service levels. The Chippewas of Nawash continue to seek partnership and funding opportunities to bring a fiber optic trunk line to the community, also known as fiber to the network. Once a fiber to the network connection reaches the existing fiber to the home gigabit internet speeds will become possible for the community. With that in mind, we have a number of opportunities we hope to pursue in that respect. The first being in education and health related services delivered into the community, because at this point in time, we've had to defer a number of opportunities related to telehealth and remote education simply because of the bandwidth limitations that exist. There's also the opportunities for local economic development that we've heard from a number of our member businesses that they would move their locations to our community and benefit from being located in the community on a tax level, on a personal growth level, but are currently inhibited by our lack of high-speed internet. So with this new service, we do anticipate new businesses being located in the community. And under our current project with GBTEL, at the conclusion of our 7-year agreement, the Chippewas and Nawash will own the fiber to the home network. Control over to this fiber to the home infrastructure creates a number of business opportunities which will be explored for development. For example, forming a local ISP or renting out the fiber to the home network to existing ISPs that are among the options that will be explored in the interim period. And that's a summary of our project at this time, and I'll open the floor to any questions that there might be.
Hi, Mike, thanks a lot. Very informative presentation. Good background on the community and the project for those of us that are not familiar with the community and the project. Just looking at the pictures, you could see how there may be might be having some challenges with the size of those bluffs, and I know just being in the community, it's pretty spread out some areas as well. So does anybody have any questions for Mike? Okay, I don't, Hossein, you had a question?
Thank you so much, Bruce, and thank you so much, Mike, really for this elaborate presentation. It's a very ambitious project, and I thank you for the leadership of the council to really embrace this kind of evolution for their infrastructure. Beyond the fiber deployment to the home, which is within the community itself, which is really a very important step forward. What are your plans for the improving the backhaul connectivity to the internet? Thank you.
So, yeah, we have taken some steps in that respect. Again, partnering with GBTEL, we've applied to the Universal Broadband Fund in support of a trunk line being brought up the peninsula. As you might have seen in the picture of where we're located, there's a dead end at the top of our peninsula, though there are a number of communities, including ourselves, along the way that would like to be serviced by a fiber optic trunk line. So partnering with our surrounding communities, we are seeking to initiate that project. And that's where that stands at the moment, but we continue to seek out other opportunities for that funding and potential project partners to see that brought to fruition.
Okay, thanks, Hossein, for the question. Thanks, Mike, for the response. Any other questions?
We do have one from within the room here, Bruce.
Okay.
Question. In one of the previous presentations, they referred to network manager. Who would that be in our location?
In our current situation right now, GBTEL would be our network manager at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I see Mike Jolly has his hand up, Bruce.
Mike, sorry, I was scanning the room, but didn't see you. Go ahead, Mike.
Just the not so much a question, just more of a point of opportunity. I'm not sure if your organization is a part of the First Nations Economic Developers Association. They had just posted IT training support funding. Basically, you become there's an opportunity there for if your community and any communities in Ontario are looking for developing their own local IT people. So there's a, like I said, the Ontario First Nation, the OFNEED is the short one for it. If you need the link, I can actually share it with you. All right, just point of opportunity.
Thank you, Mike.
We did have kind of a general question in the chat around gaming. Based on your current IT connection that you have in your community, Mike, are, like, for instance, are the youth able to game with the current connections that you have?
Again, I think it's a residence by residence sort of situation. Again, being reliant on that line of sight to the tower, that can be an implication for whether or not the service is even available to a household. And then our bandwidth is currently quite limited. I know gaming has a high demand on the upload speeds for being able to be interactive with your fellow players. My assessment is that while some are, it's probably not at the level of service that would be desired.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so thank you again, Mike. I do want to thank as well the leadership, Chippewas and Nawash, and the members for inviting us to the community. Mike as well, both myself and Hossein had a chance to visit the community this month. So I do want to thank you for your hospitality as well. So moving on, we're going to move on to our next presenter. So I would like to introduce you to Lane Gagnon. Lane is the finance manager and acting band manager at Airland First Nation. Lane is now going to provide you with an overview of their community and their IT infrastructure project. Lane, can you go ahead?
Yeah, let me just figure out. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you able to go to the full screen, Lane?
I think so.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Whoops. I'm just gonna switch it here. Oops, hold on. I'm having trouble. Okay, there. I think I got it. So, this is just my first slide. So, Aroland is a proud Anishinaabe First Nation with approximately 700 band members and a population of 400. We are a community of 130 buildings, including businesses and residential units. So we are an organization which is dedicated to delivering and creating educational, health, cultural, and economic opportunities for our members and conserving our traditional territories. The pictures I have here are just an aerial view of the First Nation. A picture of the front of our school and just a picture I pulled off the internet there of one of the AGMs we hosted in our gym. Some of the members. So we are located 20 kilometers west of Nikiana on Highway 643 in Northern Ontario, Canada, and approximately 400 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. Our closest grocery store and hospital are located in Drolton, Ontario, which is approximately 80 kilometers. So I had to put this map together myself because there wasn't a Ontario map available with the Aroland on it. So these are just some pictures of our community buildings. Our band office, you could see we have recently got our Starlink put in. So that's why I'm able to attend the meeting today. Our health center, a picture of our school. Again, some more pictures, our warehouse and fire hall, the pump house and water treatment center, and the NAP station. Our youth center and Ontario Works Training Center were recently renovated old housing units that we converted into spaces. Yeah, and then our Choose Life cabins out on Isnagami Lake. Our governance structure, we hold biannual elections where one chief and 7 councillors are elected on a 2-year term. These are just a picture of our current chief and council that were elected back in 2021. So our current IT infrastructure, we can currently access internet connectivity through several different providers, including Bell, T-Baytel, and most recently Starlink. However, the services these providers offer are costly and sometimes unreliable, and community members report they experience frequent interruptions. On average, the cost of a residential phone and internet package is about $215, and for the Wi-Fi only package, about $95 per month. The Bell units average about 11 megabits per second in the download speed and 0.90 upload speed. It's not very sustainable for for the amount of people who live in the houses. On average, the Starlink residential units cost about $900 for the equipment and shipping. And the monthly services for the internet are $130. So these units are a bit quicker and more ideal. They average at about 170 download and 153 upload speeds. So recently we partnered with a company called FSET, and through a NAN grant, we secured 60 dishes for the housing with students to assist with online schooling over the pandemic. I just pulled this picture off of the internet. There was an interactive map with current cell phone towers around. As you can see, this is the closest tower. It's about 16 kilometers from Airland, and it offers little to no cell phone reception in the community due to the distance. So many must travel probably like 10 kilometers from the community to make a call with their cell phone if they do not have a landline available. So this is just a project we're accompanying Matawa with. So Matawa's Rapid Links Indigenous is an Indigenous owned fiber optic project that was initiated in 2013 to connect the 5 remote First Nations that had been left out of a large-scale regional network, the Northwestern Ontario Broadband Expansion Initiative, due to project cost overruns. Today, the 800-kilometer regional fiber backhaul network is currently under construction. The fiber optic cable that is utilized by the Rapid Links network is highly scalable, next generation technology with the longest function life of any other network technology, and will serve generations of First Nation community members for decades to come. So it's run by Matawa, the First Nation management. The tribal council is located in Thunder Bay and is providing management support for the project. This is just to continue. So Airland's fiber project contributes to the work as a keynote in the southern portion of Matawa's regional network. Airland are equal partners in the Rapid Links project, and their project funding has been approved through that initiative. Once completed, Airland's fiber network will interconnect the more northern remote Matawa First Nations to the networks in the rest of Canada. Locally, this project will enable Airland to connect households and local organizations to the state-of-the-art fiber. Over the 5-year network development period, they are seeking to train and employ local technicians to serve the community and manage and operate the fiber connectivity project. Airland will work with a partner ISP during the first 5 years of the project, which will manage operations until the community is ready to take them over. The original completion date for the project was fall 2023. However, Airland experienced various delays. One notable issue has involved working with the trappers and hunters to ensure that the project construction does not disturb the environment along their trap lines. During construction, the project engineers discovered it was impossible to bury the line because of the landscape limitations. For an example, they could not dig through the Canadian Shield. So the trappers opposed the imposition of poles and lines in their territories due to the concerns. So this is an ongoing situation that Airland is working through. We did not experience any funding barriers. The partnership with Matawa helped in this regard. They played a leading role in creating applications for funding and working closely with communities to fund their fiber line project. Government funders have been engaged in this project and have been very supportive. An aiding factor in securing funding comes from the Ring of Fire project and its close proximity to the communities involved in the Rapid Links project. The fiber optic line will most likely continue to the mine site at some point. And then that's basically it. And this is just an aerial view again of our First Nation taken during one of our annual fish derbies. And yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
All right, Lane, thank you very much. Very informative. Good to learn about a little bit more about the community and the project. For all of the other participants who are not aware, where Airland is located and some of the issues that you're dealing with. I have a first-hand knowledge. We have a lot of family up there. I've hunted and fish up there myself, been to Airland many times, and I can attest that I have no cell service there. Internet service was very limited in the past until they got Starlink. Just to give you an idea, the former band manager, when I used to work there, I'm just going to tell you this story. You've got a minute. She would yell over the phone and tell everybody to get off the internet for her to complete the payroll online and deposit their checks. So they would all have to get off the internet while she was posting the entries online through RBC Express. So that gives you a little bit of idea the technology or lack of technology that they had. But Starlink obviously going to help them, as well as the fiber project that they have coming on board here. So thanks again, Lane. Any questions from the participants or trainers? I don't see any hands up. No, it's good. A couple of comments regarding the funding. Great that the government of Ontario is funding. And thanks, Lane, for the Ring of Fire segue. Obviously, that line, I think, will be heading up there if that project moves forward. But it's great the First Nations are capitalizing on that as well. So good to see. Okay, if there's no other questions, I don't see any other questions. I'm going to move on, and we'll move on to our next presenter here. I'd now like to introduce you to Jason Daniel. Jason's the Economic Development Officer and Radio Manager in White Sand First Nation. Jason's now going to provide you an overview of their community and their IT infrastructure project. Floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going to try to load this up. I put the audio into the presentation because we've had problems with our internet here, so hopefully this works and I can get full screen. So
yeah.
Okay. Now how the heck do I do this? I can't see.
Good morning. My name is Jason Daniel. I am the Economic Development Officer for White Sand First Nation. I have worked for White Sand since 1995. I started working at the radio station as a DJ, then becoming manager. I started the economic development portion in 2013 with training from NADF.
How do I? Okay, how do I get full screen? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm okay.
White Sand First Nation, located on the map with a red star.
Did I get any further?
Is an Ojibwe First Nation reserve in Northern Ontario, Canada. The community of Armstrong Settlement is their main community, located conterminously in the Thunder Bay District. Originally located along the northwest shore of Lake Nipissing near Mount St. John and near the White Sand River, which gives name to the group, White Sand First Nation was without a home from 1942 when high water levels began eroding the shoreline and flooding out their buildings and burial grounds. Due to the economic influence of the Canadian National Railway, many White Sand First Nation members settled along the CNR rail line. Largest of these settlements took place in Armstrong. Consequently, when a new reserve was negotiated, it was located immediately north of that community.
Turn up the speed or something?
White Sand First Nation, which is located approximately 245 kilometers north of Thunder Bay, is a rural community that has approximately 130 households and approximately 10 local businesses and organizations. However, a nearby community, Armstrong, has an additional 200 to 300 people, as well as several government and emergency services. Pictured on the left is what you see when you are standing at the band office front steps. The picture on the right is the front street of Armstrong.
I know.
White Sand First Nation has 4 First Nation chiefs. Chief Doug Sinaway, who was the first chief with his first run during 1977 through to 1991, and his second run from 1992 to 1995. Chief Ernest Wanakamek ran from 1991 to 1992, then again in 2003 to 2005. Chief Clifford Tabishko-Gijik ran from 1995 to 2003. And Chief Alan Gustafson has been White Sand First Nation's present chief since running in 2005. White Sand First Nation has been striving towards self-reliance and gainful employment for its members both on and off reserve. Our priority is to develop sustainable careers for them and for future generations. We have been working towards getting the community off of fossil fuels since 1992 when the Bioeconomy Center vision started to take shape. This project is tied into White Sand First Nation acquiring the Wabadongong new native forest, I don't know if I said that right, and its harvesting rights, which translates to White Sand Bush. As stewards of the land, we will be able to keep our forest healthy and harvest in a caring and controlled manner that is ethical and will sustain the community for generations to come. From the forest management, the product would go to our biomass center, which is broken down into 3 separate corporations. Sagatay Wood Merchandising Yard, where lumber will be sent to be sorted for use. Sagatay Wood Pellet Plant, where the production of wood pellets will be done. Then there will be the Sagatay Cogeneration, which will be responsible for the production of hydroelectric power. White Sand First Nation has applied for federal and provincial broadband funding to upgrade its internet service to rural and business services. The current provider, Bell, advertises speeds of 5 megabytes per second, but were not being achieved by the users. Bell did provide a hub for high-end users, but at a substantial cost to the user. White Sand First Nation has placed a funding request for construction costs for $2 million and have received a conditional approval. This conditional approval states that the White Sand First Nation must obtain an existing entity to provide a backhaul for the community. The benefits to enhancing the internet for White Sand First Nation is first and foremost accessibility. It also enables employment for the community, technical and administration. Training situations such as this one will also demonstrate technical training and strengthen business capacity. There is ownership of the broadband infrastructure and opportunities to expand community services and improve economic development prospects. There are a few risk factors that come with this project as well. Circuit providers are unable to provide essential backhaul to White Sand. Bell refuses to quote to build fiber from Thunder Bay. T-Baytel informed us that there wasn't enough customer service to provide fiber, and another provider quoted us with a submarine transmission with no warranty on repairs. Customers not paying will adversely affect revenues and the business case. Competition is also another risk factor that White Sand First Nation would face. Even though Starlink is in its beta mode, in rural Canada, it may lower its prices and equipment costs. What you are seeing is a Google Earth map of White Sand First Nation and Armstrong. As you will see, most businesses are located in the vicinity of Armstrong, the green little buildings. Presently, I am working with Clear Cable and Spruce River Consulting, along with Rogers, to establish a backhaul from Thunder Bay to White Sand First Nation. We are currently in talks with T-Baytel to establish a partnership with the CRTC. I am also keeping all my progress up to date with the Universal Broadband Fund and working with the Internet Society. And that, my friends, is my presentation of White Sand First Nation and its broadband project. Thank you.
I do have to apologize for the audio. It went really fast.
Hey, Jason. No problem. It was all good. Good information on the community and on the project. So I do have a question. I know I was up there last week, so I do want to thank you and the community for hosting me in the community, even though I was only there for a few hours. Didn't get to meet with all of the chief and council, but got to meet a few councillors. So thank you for that. You are definitely located pretty remote region, even though you do have a road there. There's not a lot on that 250 kilometer stretch from Thunder Bay. So you get to your community in Armstrong. But what's the plan for backhaul? I know there's towers up there and so forth. What's the plan for backhaul in terms of how you get in the backhaul to the community?
Well, right now, T-Baytel has stated that they have applied for a grant with the CRTC as far as Lac des Îles, which is almost halfway. So we want to work with them to try to continue from the Lac des Îles mine all the way up to White Sand to carry on with that project to bring fiber to White Sand.
Okay, looking at a fiber backhaul network.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually probably start off with microwave links, since we don't have, I don't know if we applied for the hydro poles yet, or if we're going to go with underground. So we'd love to go underground, but it's a little expensive right now.
Okay, thanks. Anybody have any questions for Jason?
Yeah. No.
No?
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Well, I don't see any hands raised. I don't see anything in the chat. So I think we will continue to move ahead. Oh, I do got a question. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, not just it's more like I've shared in the group chat there the two different funding opportunities for creating your own IC technician, but also the CRTC had released that there is additional funding. So you may want to check with them for any other supports for your project. And the last thing is that you probably may want to I guess, connect with your Indigenous Service Canada through their economic development. They may be able to fund some of your initiative for your project, because that's the stuff that I had did for our project.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Mike. So before, we are going to have a break planned here. So while on the break, if you're thinking of questions, just write them down, and by all means, we can go back and ask those questions. I know Tim had to leave, but we do have some trainers and experts on the line with us, and sure can respond and answer any questions that anybody may have. So we are going to take a 10-minute break, but I do want to mention to Mike, Earl, and Jason, Rob has emailed you the post-survey documents. So if you could print those during the break and have them ready at the end of our session today, as Rob's going to go over those when we're all done our presentations. But we will take a 10-minute break. It is, what time here now? 11:28, so 11:40, if everybody can come back. I think that's right, 11:40. So we'll take a 12-minute break. Mhm. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to get started. So I'm going to happy to introduce our third presenter of the day, Sally Braun. Sally is the former manager of the Western James Bay Telecom Network. Sally's now enjoying retirement. So we are happy to have her here with us today. Sally, just can you provide some additional background information on yourself and then proceed with your presentation. I'll be working hand in hand with Sally today as her internet connection's not that great. So I'm going to be, I believe, pulling up her presentation when she requests it. Go ahead, Sally.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me on this presentation. I think Mike Jolly and Tim White Duck have, you know, gone over some of the broad strokes of what you need to look at. As Bruce has said, I was the general manager of Western James Bay Telecom Network. It is a 100% Indigenous owned, Indigenous ISP, the first of its kind in Canada. We were incorporated in 2008, but the plan to bring better connectivity to the communities actually started way back in 1986, when the Mushkegowuk Tribal Council was originally formed. So I am one of a long line of champions that have successfully brought this fiber to the home initiative to fruition. We have just completed the fiber to the home project, which has been decades in the making, but mostly just in this last decade in particular. So the fiber optic line runs up the west side of the James Bay coast in Ontario. It runs from Moosonee, where the shelter is. The shelter is where we keep the racks to house the equipment. It runs all the way up to Attawapiskat. It was originally established as a transmission line to provide connectivity to the De Beers mine, diamond mine. Not so much connectivity, but power. So in order to, if you have a transmission line, you need to monitor it. So fiber optic was brought up for that reason. I have to say I was very impressed with the presentations from Arrowland, White Sands, and the presentation from the community, the Chippewas. All very, very good presentations. But what is important to keep in mind is that do not settle for anything but the best. Always have a plan in mind. It's okay to have a certain level of connectivity, but always strive and have a critical path forward for where you want to go next. So if you start with wireless, that's fine. If you start with satellite, that's fine. But always have a goal in mind of what you want to be able to provide your community in the long term. So I've been asked to speak briefly on operational and regulatory considerations for QMD owned fiber optic network. I have my watch in front of me here, so I'm going to try and be as brief as I can be. Operationally, Bruce, I guess slide 2.
Okay.
So slide 2, what I'm showing here is the first few lines are the cost of goods sold. And as you can see, bandwidth is a huge consideration. It's very, very expensive to bring the bandwidth. It comes up from 151 Front Street in Toronto, comes up through North Bay, basically up Highway 11 to Cochrane. And then from there, it runs along the railroad line from Cochrane to Moosonee. So it's very expensive to get to us. So by the time it gets to Moosonee, which is where we purchase it from, it originally was about $14 a meg. We have it now got it down to a lesser amount, but I'll go into that later. These are some other considerations. Mike has already spoken to this, your back office, who's going to be monitoring your network for you? Are you going to do it yourself? I believe White Sands is working with Clear Cable. Clear Cable is very good at this sort of thing. They're also handling the back office for our, they're co-managing it with us for our network. The repair and maintenance costs for our network we are estimating that it's probably going to be around $50,000 a year. And then of course there's the pole rental fees that Mike Jolly talked about. So those are a few things, but I don't have a lot of time. I'm happy to go over the rest of it with everyone, but what I wanted to get at was we are providing fiber to the home connectivity in 3 communities: Attawapskat, Fort Albany, and Kashechewan. So in those 3 communities, we have connections for 1,100 homes. We're transitioning from wireless, which was the first, that was sort of plan A, but it was never our optimum plan. We always intended to go to fiber. So we're transitioning now from wireless to fiber. So we have an uptake of about 750 clients that have switched to our fiber out of a potential 1,100. Some clients still want to stay on the wireless. And of course, Starlink has come in. One of the things to remember with Starlink, and I'm sure you're all aware that if you own your network, you can help your communities. The money goes back into the communities, any money that you earn. So we, are able to support our communities. Several of them were evacuated this year. We were able to provide $15,000 to Fort Albany, who were evacuated to Niagara Falls, so they could offer programming and activities for the children. Elon Musk, no, I don't think he's going to do that. In addition to the 750 fiber clients we have 55 anchor institutions that we also provide connectivity to. These are hospitals, schools, and whatnot. So just what's important to keep in mind is we're very new at the fiber to the home. We just connected Fort Albany last summer. We connected Attawapskat this spring, and we're finishing up in Kashechewan as we speak. So these operational costs that are in front of you here, they don't include salaries. Many of you are sort of incubating this project in your economic development portfolio. So that's fine. I didn't go into the salary issue, but I can, if anyone wants to contact me, I can certainly give you a more in-depth view of what the operational costs are. So the next thing, as you can see, the total at the bottom here, I have at the bottom is $521,000. That's an annual basis. That's just basically cost of goods sold and some of these other services that you'll be expected to pay for. That's based on, right now, as I say, we're new at this. We have a revenue of about $112,500 monthly. So you can, multiply that. So we're probably going to be over $1 million a year. Cost of goods sold, approximately half of that. Then you factor in your salaries and other issues. But I have more information on the cost of running the network. Melanie Pilon, who is now at Bell, has done some excellent work in this area that I can share with you. Next slide, Bruce. So buying bandwidth for a community network. I found this out. It's not always, you learn as you go in this sector, but there are several types of bandwidth that you can buy if you're an ISP. Like this is the bulk buy that you do, not as a residential client. This is the bulk buy. So there's different kinds. What I found out was that Western James Bay was actually paying for the business level, of broadband, which basically guarantees you a certain speed and connectivity. So when we went back and negotiated with Ontario, which is owned by Bell, or when you negotiate with Rogers or TELUS or wherever you are, you can ask them about the types of services that they offer. We found that by switching to the standard level, which is not a dedicated kind of service, we found that there wasn't that much different between the standard service that we got or the business class. So we went with the standard service, and we're not showing that much of a delay in how quickly the internet is delivered to a person's home. So one of the things I have here is a link to how much internet speed do I need, and that is all constantly being updated because as it was mentioned earlier with the gaming, for example, that or if you're trading on the stock market or if you have a Bitcoin interest, you're going to need more bandwidth. So this is an up-to-date link telling you, okay, what package do I need to buy in order to get the speed that I need for my home, for the multiplicity of devices that I have in my home, for the number of people I have in my home. How do I figure that out? So the packages that Western James Bay, what we are offering on the coast to our residential clients, we offer 3 packages. The one for $250 a month offers 250 megabytes per second down and 100 megabytes per second upload. So that is well beyond the federal benchmark of 5010. We are offering for $150, 150 down and 90 up. That's suitable for a small family, possibly of 4. The 250 packages, if you've got a gamer, you've got somebody, several people working in the home, you've got 15 kids over for a sleepover, that's the 250 package. The 150s for a smaller family. The 90 is dollar package is the federal benchmark, which is 50 down and 10 up. That's suitable for a family that has a couple of children, and it allows them, those children, to attend school online. Next slide, please, Bruce. And also, I should mention, for the anchor institutions, such as the hospitals and schools, we offer 500 down and 250 up. They pay a little more, but they're getting very good service. So the regulatory considerations, if you want to run your own ISP, this is a good thing. As has been mentioned, if as Tim said, if you have control over your network, it gives you a lot of discretion as to and privacy for the data that is going back and forth across your network. Gives you some control. It also gives you an asset that you can put on your balance sheet as an asset. So for the, I think we need to go back a slide or forward a slide, Bruce. I need the one on the CRTC. Nope, back. Can you go back a couple? Go back one more. There, that's the one I need. Okay. So these are regulatory considerations if you want to become your own ISP. It's very easy to let someone like Bell walk in or Rogers walk in and do everything. But there is also something to be said for being your own person or being your own boss, your own ISP. So if you want to become an ISP, you would need to register with the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Commission. This is how you can do it. There's the link. There are people there that will help you. You're also going to need what's called a BITS license, which is a basic international telecommunications license in order to operate. This was a bit before my time. I'm not sure how much this costs or if it costs anything at all, but these are the links. And again, there are people that can help you with this. There are forms that need to be completed every year in both cases, but they are not onerous. They are not difficult. They're basically the same thing every year. If you need any help with this sort of, to get through this, you can hire a telecommunications consultant, or you can ask someone like myself or Jesse Fiddler or Tim Whitetuck or Mike Jolly to help you. Next slide. Yes, if you are going to be your own, can you go back one slide, Bruce? If you're going to be your own ISP, the globe is divided into different geographical sectors, and each sector is governed by the American Registry of Internet Numbers. This is like every device you have, every router you have in your home, everything has what's called an IP address. It's similar to a phone number. So you would need to get a batch of IP addresses if you were going to have your own, run your own network. They are not expensive. I believe we paid $900 back in 2010 for 1,000 of them. Now, that's another whole area I'm happy to discuss because there are different kinds of IP addresses. There are so many devices that we basically run out of a certain type of IP addresses, and now they're generating a new kind, but it doesn't, it's not that complicated really. Another thing to be aware of is there is a Commissioner of Complaints for Telecommunication Services. Any ISP is governed by this commissioner. If a customer calls or completes a form online, this is the link here, they can also complain, and the ISP has to act, regardless of which ISP it is, whether it's Bell or WJBTN. When a client complains, the ISP jumps. If the customer knows that this is where they can go. Otherwise, the ISP can get its license yanked and is not allowed to operate. Next slide, Bruce. Okay, so I've been 15 minutes. I have 10 minutes left. So this is our network. these are all of the people that we had to get lined up as our partners in order to make this project happen. So we work with the power authorities, we work with our tribal council, we work with NOHFC, which is Northern Ontario Heritage Fund. We work with Canada, the Innovation, Science and Economic Development. We went to the RBC, and we also went to Community Futures, and we went to, which is a funding organization that is familiar with the North and the challenges we face with infrastructure. We work with the 3 communities. We hired a consultant, Borcom consultant. They are very good. Highly recommend them. And CNCSG, which is a telecom communications consultant. Next slide, please. So this is basically what we did to prepare. Some of you have already done this. It's always a good idea to have a good telecommunications consultant. This is somebody who can do the drawings for you. And then by the Morcom consultants, they were good at, because at the time, we didn't really know where we could go for money. There wasn't a lot of money floating around for projects like this back in 2012, 2013. There's a lot more money now. So the first thing we did was we applied to NOHFC and FedNor for the funding to do an engineering study. This is really important. What the engineers will do is they come to your community, they will measure, they will tell you exactly how much fiber you need and what you need in the way of hardware for the poles, and actually produce a set of drawings. And from the drawings, your telecommunications consultant can produce what's called the bill of materials. So once you know how much the bill of materials is going to be, and these are things like what kind of equipment are you going to have in your shelter? Do you need to have in your shelter? How many meters of fiber are you going to require? How are you going to monitor the equipment in your shelter, etc.? What's your customer premise equipment going to be, and where are you going to get it from? That's the box that gets attached to the wall of the house. So once you have the engineering study done and you have your bill of materials, you can issue what's called a request for proposal for these things that you need to have. And that's exactly what we did. We ordered our fiber from PCL. We ordered our we dealt with Clear Cable. We dealt with a company called Phonics for our software. But I can go into more detail on that if any of you would like to talk to me afterwards. Once you know how much your materials are going to cost, you've got to figure out the Gantt chart showing when we would be doing what in each community, the length of time each task would take, the labor hours, the tools, equipment we would need, and where we would get the equipment from. So next slide, Bruce. So this is a Gantt chart. And this is what you can do this yourself. You can figure it out yourself. Or, if you have a telecommunications consultant, they can help you. So So for Fort Albany, this does it by the week. Of course, when COVID hit, all this went out the window, but this gives you an idea of what you take into consideration. You always, I guess, next slide, Bruce. Okay, so So from the RFPs, your request for proposals and Gantt chart, you now know how much your project's going to cost. And then that's where you can go to your funding organizations and with your information. And they will ask you for things. One thing they ask you for is audited financial statements going back 3 years. So whatever your parent organization is, it's really important that they have those ducks in a row. Your financial house being in order is absolutely critical if you want funding. So we were also required to put up some money. And we went into the communities a lot. We met with chief and council. We went into the communities and we explained exactly what we were doing. So, and of course, you all understand how important that is, to, go into the community and make sure everybody, is comfortable, everybody has a good meal, then you sit down and you talk. So, and we were lucky because we had local power authorities working with us. We did not have to barge in line trucks. We advanced the money to the power authorities so they could bring up gas the year before on the winter road. So we saved a pile of money on freight. We always used local. Even when we shipped everything up to the communities, we used a local First Nation company to get a lower rate for freight on Air Quebec. Next slide, please, Bruce. So here's how much the project cost. So we got, so much from NOHFC, so much from the feds. And we got 100,000 divided by 3 communities payable over 5 years. So each community pays $6,666 to WJBTN. And this is the money we put up, 1.9. We were able to get a $500,000 loan from the RBC, $500,000 loan from Nordaski Futures. They're based in Hearst, Ontario. And we put up 900,000 that we had saved in cash reserves built up over 10 years. So the whole project was 4.7 million in total. I am not affiliated with the project now because I retired last year, but of course, we've gone over the time limit because of COVID, but we are under budget. And that's because we're a not-for-profit. We go in. Next slide, please. Yeah. We go in, I like to say lean and mean. We go in for 6 weeks. We use local workers. We use and this was a revenue generation exercise for the local power authorities. We rented their trucks. We used their lines people. And we trained people in every community. We have splicers in every community. We have splicing machines and people trained to use them in every community. So if there is a fiber break, it gets fixed immediately. We don't have to fly people in. These are just some photos of showing the linemen are up in the line trucks. The first thing we did was we, you hang what's called the messenger wire. Messenger wire is galvanized steel wire. That's if you're doing an aerial installation. And a cable will droop over time. So the messenger wire goes up first. And then what these 2 gentlemen are doing in the upper left-hand corner is they are wrapping what's called the distribution cable around the messenger cable. Distribution cable is a little softer, will sag, given high temperatures. That's why it's wrapped around the the galvanized wire, and that is throughout the community. And this middle shot, this is Andrew McLeod. He's our construction manager. He's also our telecom consultant. This shows him in one of our shelters. I believe this is the Fort Albany shelter. And these are called racks. You can see these vertical structures here. These are called racks, where we can put up our equipment. And upper right is showing the line truck with the bucket, and the gentleman is attaching the fiber to the actual home. Next slide, please, Bruce.
Okay, Sally, we're gonna have to wrap it up here.
All right, okay. Yeah, this is just basically what we did. And next slide, please, Bruce. Yeah, these are just resources that I have here. I shared one of these yesterday, like this one panel on who do you want to work with? Who do you trust? This panel they're all First Nations and or from tribes in the States. So that's a very good panel to watch. Here's the live stream. The top one is the Internet Society or the Indigenous Connectivity Summit that was in Alaska. And I thought I had included one. I guess not. So, no, that's all right. I put it on another slide. But that's basically it, Bruce. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I can put, maybe you could put my email address in the chat. I'm not sure I'm able to here.
Okay, I can
okay.
put it in the chat, but if you can't, Sally, but definitely thank you for your presentation. Very informative for sure. A lot going on there, and obviously a very successful project up in the James Bay lowlands. So good to learn from for anybody that's rolling out one of their projects. Any questions from any of the participants? I don't see any hands at this point. I know what we're going to do too is for any of the participants that want a copy of the presentations, we can send them out to you. So just put your email in the chat if you do want copies of all of them, or if you want a specific one, just let me know in the chat. We can do that. I can send them to you. Okay, we're a little bit behind schedule, but we may run a bit over, but we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to do their presentation. So I'm going to call on our final presenter of the day, Jesse Fiedler. Jesse's a KNET director, and we are happy to have him with us here today as well. Jesse, can you provide some additional info on yourself and then proceed with your presentation? Go ahead, Jesse, the floor is yours.
All right, good afternoon, everybody, or is it afternoon now? Yeah, it is afternoon. So, Jesse Fiedler from Sandy Lake First Nation. I've been working with KNET on and off for probably the last 25 years in different capacities. I've experienced working as a technician, programmer, database manager, and doing different applications and solutions and networking too. So, jack of all trades, I have experience in everything. So as with KNET, we provide network solutions for communities, both for community-wide solutions as well as like different pops in the community. And so we work with First Nations right across Ontario, and we have some locations, everywhere in Ontario really. So we do provide cable management systems, wireless systems, fiber optics. And then we also work with transport providers to get connectivity to communities. So we're involved with lots of different builds, and we're always busy doing projects. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the wireless projects that we've been recently involved in. So I'm going to share my screen here. I think it's the full screen one. Is this full screen? Yeah.
Looks to be
Yes.
it.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So most recently, we've had we just finished work on two wireless deployments, and these are the two communities of Mishkegowgamang and Saugeen. And these projects probably went on for almost probably 2-3 years. So they take a little while to complete. There was a lot of challenges along the way, but we got things figured out, and they're both live active sites. Now, these two communities they're kind of close together along the same highway, but they're very different. So we got Mishkegowgamang, which is very spread out. It's close to Pickle Lake, and it's got like multiple sites for its community. So, and it's very spread out between, like say, between 15 to 20 kilometers in range. And then we got Saugeen, which is probably one of the smaller communities in Ontario. And this is not to be confused with Saugeen of Southern Ontario. So there's two Saugeens, Ojibwe Saugeens. There's the one up here, northwestern Ontario, and then there's the one down by Bruce Peninsula with the Nahawash, close to the Nahawash community there, close to Nahawash. So this is a small community, probably only like 20 to 30 houses there. But Saugeen never really had like much bandwidth or much internet there. We just had a connection, and they never had service to their residences or major organizations. So I'll talk a little bit first about MISH. I'll call it MISH for short. So, here's a map of the two sites in Mishkegowgamang. You can see that they're separated by 15 kilometers along the highway, and then there's also each site kind of has its own network of roads and houses all over the place. So when we originally did Mishkegowgamang many years ago, it was a suitable site for wireless. And the reason why we chose wireless for Mish was that it's very spread out, and it would cost a lot to lay fiber and cable infrastructure in this community. So there's many kilometers, and when you're building fiber or cable or any kind of physical cable infrastructure, you pay by the kilometer and also by poles and things like that. So it gets very costly when you're doing that kind of infrastructure build. And at the time, we had a limited budget, so wireless was the way to go, and it had lower capital costs initially, and it was a suitable site, especially if we were able to build a tall build tall towers where houses and different buildings could point their antennas and reach that tower. So why wireless? Those are some of the reasons why we chose wireless for these sites. Some other reasons for doing wireless is that it can be upgraded to newer wireless technologies as speeds get better. And Tim did talk about this, and Tim kind of did an overview of wireless and spectrum, and there's always newer wireless technologies coming out. So with a wireless tower, you can always upgrade your main access points on the tower, and then upgrade your subscribers and get better speeds that way. So, and it requires a little bit less investment than a whole new fiber network or that kind of thing. And the other thing with wireless, so there is a lot of wireless solutions out there. There's so many ways you can do wireless. There's a lot of vendors, there's a lot of contractors. Almost everyone is kind of doing it right across the world, and a lot of independent consultants and contractors that can build wireless for your communities. We're one of many companies that do this. As you've heard, there's so many companies and contractors and consultants involved in this telecommunications sector that there's lots to choose from and a lot of people to work with in different aspects of your community network building. So I'll dive a little bit into MISH first. We'll get into Saugeen after. So with this project, we built two brand new 200-foot towers. One located on the Sandy Road, or the Sandy Road site in the northern part of Mishkegowgamang, and then another one located by the original band office. It's actually a new home care building on the southern part of the community. And with this build, it required some additional work. There was a tower build, And there was also upgrading the antennas or putting new antennas. And then there was also upgrading the fiber infrastructure. So this community is located on the highway, and there's Bell Fiber located and running alongside it. And we've had access to that Bell Fiber before, but one of the challenges we had in the north here is that Bell's capacity on their fiber network was limited to maybe only 300 megabits for the entire community. So what we had to do is we had to, ask Bell how much it would cost to upgrade their infrastructure to get faster speeds. And that was needed for both Mushkegowuk and Saugeen at the same time. So that's one big piece is the the fiber, the backbone infrastructure upgrade. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So that's part of the build. The other part of the build is when we were doing the towers, we had to survey the area, get an idea of what the coverage would typically be. So one thing we did is we did a desktop study. And there's software and tools out there. There's also consultants that you can work with, power consultants that help with doing these kinds of surveys. So this is a typical example of a coverage map of if we were to have a tower in this location. This is the service area that you could potentially get. The same with down south here. There's a second tower, and there's a service, service area. And anything closer to the tower, you get a better signal, really. And that's all kind of susceptible to kind of interference too, but trees and hills. But these topographical maps kind of give you an idea where there might be dead zones or where there might be good coverage zones. So these topographical maps kind of they consider the elevation of the terrain and everything. So that's how we kind of initially planned wireless. It's that desktop survey. So this is all kind of like theoretical. And then next thing was designing the network. And here's our new network design. So within the community, so this is all within the community. Within the community, we got the community center, and this is where the main fiber connection, backhaul connection comes into. And then from the fiber connection there, we have a connection going to the main tower, which is a 200-foot tower. And then on that 200-foot tower, there's access points, and those access points serve the immediate area around the tower. So, and they serve the different customers, then the homes. There's also the band office, nursing station, high school. The school is all served by that wireless connection on that tower. Now, since the community has a second site down below here, we had to do what we call a point-to-point connection from one tower to the other tower. So we got the second tower over here. So there's a main point-to-point connection between the two towers, and that's kind of like almost like a transport wireless connection. It uses very specific antennas that are just for that link only. And then on the second tower below, we have an additional access point that serves the homes and customers in that region. So that's kind of like the general design of the network, without getting into like the technical stuff. And so with that network, the community represented here in a circle kind of has its local towers, and that feeds the local infrastructure. And then I talked about the fiber build, and this is always the biggest concern for any community, is that transport, the backhaul. And this is something that we all struggle with right across Ontario, because there's a very limited number of transport providers in our regions, and usually there's a monopoly on it. So in our area, in this corner of Ontario, the main transport provider is Bell Canada. So what we do is we work with Bell Canada because they have all the fiber optics, they have all the equipment and everything. We work with them on establishing the links to our communities. And then what we do is we run our network over the Bell transporter. So it goes from the community, you see in the circle here, and then it goes to our facilities in Toronto. And then in Toronto, we link up with other internet providers right across the world. We call it peering. So we have multiple internet providers and sources And we have equipment in Toronto, all network equipment, and then we can also tie into other networks too. So this is where we tie into like Bell Canada, Ontario, Eastlink, all the other ISPs and transport providers, Cogeco and Shaw. So we in Toronto, it's kind of like the main internet hub of Canada. So that's where everyone networks and connects to each other. And then we can buy other connections, and people can buy connections from us too. So the kind of neat thing about that is that like for me, I can buy a connection from Western James Bay Telecom and out of Wapiskat, because then we run cellular up there. We buy a connection from them and we run it all the way down to Toronto to our network and then back to our cellular facilities. So the telecom industry is very diverse, and there's a lot of resellers and buyers and people that do specific things. So we work with everyone in different capacities. And so we also resell internet to communities. And there's a lot of other providers out there. So we resell internet to Moose Factory with Mike Jolly. And then Western James Bay Telecom, they decided to buy it from Bell. So I mean, it's always a big market for this. So anyway, so the important piece is that transport for our communities is we had to pay for this transport upgrade going from Mushkegowuk and Saugeen all the way to Toronto. So that portion, just to upgrade the fiber infrastructure, was probably about $3 million just to get Bell to upgrade their network in order for us to get more bandwidth. And funding wise, that wasn't originally part of our proposal. So we had to look for additional funding for that. And we were able to get funding from Indigenous Services Canada infrastructure, and they did pay for that. So keep that as a side note. ISC infrastructure can help with some of these transport costs if that's something you're struggling with. I'm not saying that they will, but they may look into it if you're already having a project and you need that infrastructure upgrade. So if it's serving your community, that is it is kind of eligible. So that's what we did for Saugeen and Mish, is we upgraded that Bell transport. And then we run the internet over that and then out to Toronto. So that's an important piece for everyone. And in different regions, they have different transport providers. There's Rogers, there's Shaw, there's Hydro One Telecom. There's tons right across Ontario, especially in Southern Ontario. You sometimes get a bit more selection, but there is extravagant costs sometimes, because if you have a fiber running by your community on the highway, like we have in Saugeen, I'll show you over here. Saugeen, there was fiber running by on the highway, but they never got the community hooked up, which is only maybe a few kilometers off the highway. So we had to pay Bell to run fiber to the closest facility, and then what we did is after we ran fiber from there to community. Anyway, I'm jumping all over the place. Sorry, guys. I'll try to make it quick. Okay, so in Mish, we had the two towers. So here's some pictures of the towers. So this is Sandy Road site, and then the ban office site. From there, we had like little telecom buildings beside the tower, and we had to make sure there's hydro hooked up, and then hydro, and then we got the wireless connectivity. And then out there, you can see some of the directional antennas and some the omnidirectional antennas. So I'll talk a little bit about the wireless technology that we used. I won't get too much into it. I know Tim already covered a lot of this. So we got the wireless spectrum, and Tim talked about this. So wireless runs in radio waves, and here's a little diagram. So the best way I can describe radio waves is that actually light is a radio wave. So any time you look and see something like a light bulb or your lamp or anything that's shining light, that's an example of a radio wave, but it's an invisible spectrum. So that's what we can see. So there's a lot of invisible radio waves all over the place that's happening, and Wi-Fi and cell phone signals, those are all part of that spectrum, but they're at a different frequency that we can't see or hear. And so there's public spectrum that can be used by anyone, and there's also licensed spectrum. So in this case, we use some of the public spectrum that's available, like 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. There's also 900 megahertz, which is a very low spectrum. If you guys remember the first telephone cordless units that you would buy for your home, those used to run on 900 megahertz, but then the newer ones, they run on 2.4 and 5 gig. So that's just an example of the different frequencies that we may have used in the past. And then for a licensed spectrum, there's cellular, there's LTE, 5G. There's also a new 6 gigahertz experimental spectrum right now that Government Canada will be releasing. And we do have another wireless project where we are using 6 gigahertz, and it provides very fast speeds. So we're getting almost close to gigabit speeds using 6 gigahertz. That's another project we're involved with Lac Seul First Nation. So there is pros and cons for using all these frequencies. You know, some frequencies give you better bandwidth, but they don't travel as far. And some may give you like building penetration, like you can go through walls and roof ceilings and things like that. Whereas some frequencies, you need what they call a line of sight. So you have to be able to see, the antenna has to see the other antenna in order for it to work. So there's all these things to consider when you're building wireless networks, is the frequencies and also the technology. And the technology is built by different vendors. So some of the more popular vendors out there, there's Cambium Networks, Motorola, Ubiquiti, MikroTik. There's a whole whack load of them. Some of them are high end and more expensive to use. One are like Cambium is more kind of commercial based for wireless ISPs. Same with Motorola. Whereas Ubiquiti and MikroTik, they're a bit more work to do, but they're fairly cheap. And we've used all of them. But for this Mishkegowang and Saugeen, we've used Cambium. They have good solutions and good technology. And then with the wireless technology, we used omnidirectional antennas to cover, to put those up on the towers. We've also used directional antennas, and we use point-to-point antennas and point-to-multi-point. So here's a diagram of some of the examples. So there's like an omni antenna. Then we got the directional antenna. And then we got more point-to-point directional antennas that can go long distances. And that's what we used for the two towers, is these point-to-point directional satellite dishes. Or they look like satellite dishes, but they're dishes, sorry. And I forgot to mention that for wireless technology, satellite is also wireless technology. So sometimes you forget that satellites, they do use wireless. So for example, Starlink is an example of a wireless technology. They use their own frequency that's licensed by the federal government. So it's almost like Starlink is just like having your antenna way up in the sky. Instead of having a tower that's close on land, Starlink, they use antennas that move constantly in the sky, and their antennas are up there pointing back down at you. So that's just another example of wireless technology. Anyway, so once we built the network, you know, some of the things we had to do is, or the community does, is they maintain all the subscribers. So they got to do the local installations at the houses or the school. So here's some examples of some antennas pointing back at a tower. So there's one on the school with a roof mount, and then there's another one located like on a little J arm. So there's all these different ways of mounting antennas. Sometimes you can put in towers or poles or things like that. It really depends on if you can get line of sight. So the technology we used, you have to be able to see from point A to point B. So sometimes you got to put your antennas in funny locations in order to see it. So that's one of the challenges, really. But once you get that line of sight, it works great. So here's an example of what it looks like at a home. So the home, they pick up the signal from their antenna, and then that feeds back into their house. And then within their house, they have their own Wi-Fi router that can connect to where they connect all their phones and devices. And you can also have it wired inside too. So then everything feeds back to the main tower transmitter. So that was Mishkegowang, and so Mish had like 200 feet towers. This next community is Saugeen. It's a very small community. So they had an existing tower already, so they had a 60-foot tower. And then there was a tower location over on the left-hand side here. So what we had to do here is we had to run fiber from the highway all the way to that site. And then what we did is Bell put in their fiber to the highway location. And then we have community-owned fiber that goes through the bush to the tower site. And then from the tower, we got wireless to the rest of the community. And here's the tower. You can see it's fairly small. And all those trees you see around it, we cut all those down. So that's one of the things that you have to do sometimes, cut down trees for wireless. But that whole site got cleared after this picture was taken.
Hey, Jesse, it's Bruce.
Okay.
We wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
So here's an example of the topographical map for Wasaugeen. So I talked about some of the challenges and some things you got to keep in mind. There's antenna, tower maintenance, for tower construction. If you're going to be building towers that you own, you should make sure that there is space on those towers for additional items, because maybe your community wants to have an FM radio station, or maybe you want to have cellular service thereafter, or two-way radio. So there's all these other things that you can use your wireless infrastructure for, not just internet. So keep those in mind so that you can build for the future. So you can always add on to your wireless system. I won't go into the management and building systems. So there's a lot of systems out there that help you manage your wireless and building systems. And then that's it. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Jesse. Very good information. I really like the pictures. They kind of explain a lot without having the explanation in terms of being able to see the types of towers that you used in the project. And now I can understand when I see a tower like that, what it's for, because I do see a lot of those different towers in my travels for sure. So thank you very much. Any questions from the participants for Jesse? I just have a quick question on the cost. So the towers that you showed for Mushkegowgamik, the two towers, so what would the cost of the tower be and what would the cost to erect it to kind of get it going?
Probably about around $350,000. So those were guided line towers. But I'll tell you now, though, we did run into overruns on those towers because they required anchors, and the initial survey came back and said that the ground was good around there. Then after we had that real rainy, wet season the other year, we had the flooding and all that, and that softened up the ground, and we required a lot more extra fill for both the tower and the anchors. So sometimes there's all these little things that pop up during construction that you don't account for. So you do have to make allowances during your construction for things like that.
Okay. No, that's good. Thanks. Any other questions from the audience, not only for Jesse, but for anybody else and the other trainers? I know Tim had to leave us, but I believe we have everybody else still here. So anybody have any questions? Even the trainers, if they have any comments. Hossein, if you wanted to add anything. You had any questions? Oh, we got a couple of hands going up. So go ahead, Mike.
Just to the communities, don't get discouraged. As being a service technician and running our own ISP, your community members can be very unforgiving when the internet goes out. And sometimes it is discouraging to have someone criticize the hard work that you do. You know, they expect their internet to be on all the time and that the problem is not at their house, which a lot of times it is. Don't get discouraged. You are going to have a lot of growing pains, a lot of bumps in the road, and you're just going to have to laugh at it. And hopefully your community members will understand that it's not just a simple flick of a switch that you're going to be able to fix it. Yeah, don't get discouraged. That's the only comment I'm going to have for you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Great comments for sure. Go ahead, Hossein.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just to add to Mike's comment, I think this is a great opportunity for the communities to really invest in capacity building in their communities for employment, for learning. It is, I think, very useful to have the skills in-house and really utilize the programs that exist for high school graduates, or the same to be trained on these technologies that help implement the network, and they will get first-hand experience in implementing the technologies in their networks as they grow and get deployed. So this is a good opportunity. Just reach out to the experts here on the call, the trainers and participants. I think one of the key objectives of these sessions is beyond the knowledge sharing is to build this community of expertise, so that we know each other and we can reach out to the people who have gone through these deployment pains and opportunities before, and can help. We can really help each other. So building a network of humans, of individuals. Thank you.
Thanks, Hossein. Sally, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Mike said. I mean, the Western James Bay Telecom Network, I mean, it took like years to get off the ground. But I think it's very important that you don't give up. And by all means, like, reach out, and no question is too dumb. I was started out as a library technician, so I knew very little about the internet when I started. But there are people, like, I've learned a lot as I've gone along. Jesse is extremely knowledgeable. Mike and Tim are very knowledgeable. So there are people that are in Ontario or in your region that you can reach out and ask questions of. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sally. Okay, well, I know it's been a long day for everybody. We still have to do the post-survey questions, but before we get into that, before I invite Samantha just to quickly go over that, I do want to thank the trainers, thank chief and council members, community members, participants, and everybody involved today. Great presentations, and thank you, the participants, for sticking around and participating as well. So in saying that, I'm just going to hand it over to Samantha just to go over the post-survey.
Hi, everyone. So the post survey is just evaluating what you've learned so far and sort of your growth. So people in person, you'll be filling out on paper, and I'm just going to put the post survey link in the chat for those who are online.
Okay, thanks, Samantha. So the post survey is posted in the chat. So for those of you that have laptops, by all means, if you could go and click on the link and complete the survey. And then let's see here. And I think for Mike and Jason, I believe you were sent the PDF of the survey, so you should have copies of those, and you can hand it out to everybody in the room and have them complete it and hand them back to you. Hossein, did you want to say a few last things while everybody's doing their surveys? Because people might be just leaving the meeting after they're done.
Yes, thank you, Bruce. It has been a great pleasure and actually an honor to be here with you, and thank you for the band councils and leadership and participants really to dedicate this time to allow us to share the knowledge and expertise of the trainers and experts from Indigenous communities who have shared their expertise today. We look forward to putting this knowledge into action with the projects that they have identified in the near term, and they can count on our support and support of the experts here to facilitate whatever we can to make these deployments successful. I wanted to point out also that we have a session tomorrow for the cripping exercise. Bruce, would you like to talk about this? So thank you so much really for the time and effort, and for the being here with us, allowing us to share with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Hossein. Yes, thanks for mentioning that, Hossein. We do have another session tomorrow from 1 to 2:30. it's a hands-on crimping exercise, so this should be a lot of fun. Jesse, who presented today, is going to be the presenter tomorrow. He's actually going to go through and teach us all how to crimp things. I've never done this myself, so I'm looking forward to it as well, participating in it. So definitely, so for people in Aroland, reach out to Lane. For people in Chippewas of Nawash, reach out to Mike. And then for people in White Sand, reach out to Jason. They have all the crimping kits available with them. So you all get to keep your own kit afterwards. So we're looking forward to that tomorrow. So hope to see everybody there tomorrow as well. So thank you again.
Yes, I'll grab it in a second. Does everyone want to smile?
No.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. And one more time, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you everybody for the hard work and sticking with us and doing the post surveys as well. Appreciate the time and effort. Looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow, and even more community members would be even greater. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Hossein and Bruce and all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay,
See you tomorrow.
bye-bye. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
I can give you 15 minutes tomorrow, Michael.
Okay.